But right now we're going to go to Sri Lanka, and the UN Human Rights Council has told Sri Lanka it should finally take action against government troops who committed war crimes during the final stages of its war against the Tamil rebels. Now, this was despite heavy lobbying by a 70-strong team from Sri Lanka. They didn't want a bar of the criticism and presumably the embarrassment that it brought. But the resolution which was put forward by the United States was passed anyway. So Sri Lanka, which claims it has put the war behind it, finds that it's again staring it in the face, especially the finding last year that tens of thousands of civilians were killed. This was in 2009, in the final months of the 25-year civil war. Now, the panel said that serious violations were committed by both sides, the government and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. Now, Sri Lanka's government has consistently denied allegations that it targeted civilians, although it has admitted that some were killed as its troops advanced northwards. Now, joining us now is Dr. Sam Pari from the Australian Tamil Congress. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
What are your expectations that the Sri Lankan government will act on this resolution?
Well, the Sri Lankan government has consistently denied any complicity in war crimes, and to date it keeps saying that the international community should not intervene in their business. And in fact, it has been quite defiant against this resolution. So as someone who is a member of the Tamil community, I'm quite sceptical as to whether the Sri Lankan government will take this as a hint that the international community is watching and they want Sri Lanka to uphold the rule of law. I believe that the Sri Lankan government will continue acting in impunity, and I hope that the international community will soon take much stronger action to ensure that justice prevails in Sri Lanka.
What kind of stronger action can they possibly take? I mean, they've got Russia and China, who are among the 15 countries that opposed it, and these are countries which are well known for using their veto against any UN action.
Well, with this current resolution, we see this as somewhat a first step, but there is a long way to go. And the UN expert panel did recommend an international independent investigation into war crimes. Ultimately, the pressure does have to come from the people within Sri Lanka as well, but because there is just huge media censorship and a lot of state propaganda and a lot of punishment towards government dissenters, people within Sri Lanka, in fact, do not know the true story of what's going on within Sri Lanka itself. So in some ways, it is lobbying by advocacy groups, lobbying by Tamil rights groups, and a combined effort by various countries that is going to exert pressure on Sri Lanka in the form of, trade sanctions, travel bans on government officials, etc.
So it doesn't need to be the heavy resolutions from the Security Council then?
I think that those resolutions do help, but I think there are other ways in pressuring the Sri Lankan government as well. And we see with this resolution that there is a glimmer of hope that as long as the advocacy continues, the deaths of so many civilians will not be forgotten.
Yeah. Now, the resolution was sponsored by the US government. How important is this, that you've got the US government on the side and also the Australian Senate unanimously passing a joint motion, including a motion that was sponsored by Foreign Minister Bob Carr? I mean, you've got some pretty strong people on your side.
That's right. They're all promising signs, and what Australia should realise is that the reason we get so many boatloads of refugees coming from Sri Lanka is because of the root cause. The root cause is in Sri Lanka. The ground reality in Sri Lanka, the persecution, the threat of journalists and human rights activists in Sri Lanka is what is causing so many people to come to Australia. And I believe that the Australian government and the opposition and the major parties are finally starting to realise that a peaceful Sri Lanka will essentially mean fewer refugees and coming to Australia, and a resolution to the humanitarian crisis we have on our front doorstep at the moment.
And it wasn't all good news, though, for the Tamil people, of course. The Tamil Tigers have also been accused of being responsible for civilian casualties as well. So are you calling for any of the offences committed by the Tamil side to be held to account as well?
We have been calling for an international independent investigation into all sides of the participants of the war. At the end of the day, 40,000, maybe even up to 100,000 Tamil civilians died. So we want all perpetrators to be brought to justice. It doesn't really matter what language they spoke.
Okay, good to speak to you, Dr. Sam Pari from the Australian Tamil Congress.
Thank you very much.
Okay.